Hello everybody, welcome to another Stellaris video. Today I'm pretty excited to show you guys a very fun build that I've seen played in some multiplayer games, which I think has some very cool strengths. The first one is it doesn't use a lot of the typical things in strong builds these days, such as overtuned, biological ascension, or modularity. Instead, it takes advantage of Cybernetic Creed to have one of the fastest ascensions in the game. I believe you can be fully ascended by something like year 10 to 11. In addition, it takes advantage of sequenced securities and the haruspex jobs you get from Cybernetic Creed to create a really efficient job that creates trade, society research, engineering research, um, and Unity all in one job, meaning that if you have a trade fed, you can basically produce a good chunk of all the resources in the entire game with only one job type, meaning you only have to focus on physics research and alloys outside of that. And you can also go work a cooperative if you want a steady supply of basic resources. We will probably end up going with trade fed, simply because I don't want to have to cover consumer goods as an additional resource. And of course, TradeFed takes care of consumer goods, so we'll go ahead and get started. We're also playing with chromologs and traditional. These just boost the efficiency of bureaucratic jobs, which the haruspex classify as, despite also producing trade and engineering research. As for galaxy settings, we're playing in a small galaxy with standard multiplayer settings of 0.75 tech and Unity and difficulty scaling off. We won't be fighting the crisis today, as this is more of a earlier game build showcase, and we probably won't be playing until the ultra late game. Let's take a look at the planets we get to. We get at least one additional planet. That is quite nice. As with most builds these days in Stellaris, the more planets you get, the better, basically strictly, up to a certain limit, which is just how many planets you're willing to manage. But if you're willing to manage more planets is always better. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and get started with this. We're going to go ahead and take the Field Dynamics Center, Planetary Unification, and we want to start with the Guaranteed Research option, Integrated Cybernetics for Engineering. This is because this is what we need to open the Cybernetics Tradition Tree, which we're going to be opening as soon as we can. In addition to this, we're going to want to go ahead and buy a good amount of consumer goods, as we won't have enough at the beginning, and you also want to immediately get started on building the Autochton Monument on your capital, as do most builds want these days. I would also, if you see a trade focus leader, you can go ahead and hire them for your capital. Although getting one with the biologistic implants trait seems to be also a pretty good trait. However, we're going to go ahead and put the trade focus leader in there, as that will help out with our basic economy quite a bit. We can also go ahead and purchase some minerals, as we will need a good chunk of minerals for our gameplay, of course. And essentially, all you want to do is you want to build the corporate culture site, you want to remove the sprawling slums, and then you want to convert all your job types into Prius jobs, so spiritualist enclaves. And then, in addition, you can go ahead and turn on Veneration of Saints. This will give your haruspex an additional output. And if we take a look at our tech as well, we can see that we're producing mostly engineering tech and a decent amount of society tech. This is all from the haruspex job mostly, which produces a very awesome amount of those resources, allowing you to focus the rest of your economy on other things. Also, as with most builds, we're still going to open Mercantile, as Mercantile is just so incredibly strong these days with the amount of civilians, especially, you get on your capital, with almost 100 more pops. Or not 100 more pops, sorry. The equivalent of about like 10 more pops, or 20, is it? Like, because we used to start with like 28 pops on our capital, right? So now we have 4,800. So it's like 20 more pops on our capital. We just have a lot of civilians just kind of sitting around doing nothing. By allocating them to something useful like being civilians, it's just such a huge boon to your economy. And we're going to be sticking with the mercantile opener into adaptive economic policies, except we're going to go consumer goods focused. As with this build, we won't be lacking Unity, as we only need 2 tradition trees to finish our Ascension. Anyhow, yeah, for the rest of the early game build plan, our idea is mostly just to finish the first tradition tree and fill out the first 2 districts on your capital with only spiritualist enclave. So we're going to go ahead and get that done, and then we'll be right back. Alright everyone, so it's been about a year, and we're starting to get events for our Cybernetic Creed chain, and I wanted to kind of explain how we get through these events, And essentially, your main goal is to discourage anything that doesn't support one of your specific factions. And if we take a look with Cybernetic Creed, you start with 3 factions, and you essentially want to support the Choir of the Mind. Um, so you want to select options that displease other factions, as we don't want to embrace any other faction except for the Choir of the Mind. Um, and it shouldn't be too hard to do that, but in case you get confused, I guess you could try multiple times or check out the wiki. Uh, However, yeah, I would just recommend supporting the Choir of the Mind whenever you get a chance, and discouraging other factions whenever you get a chance, and it shouldn't be too hard to end up with the Choir of the Mind as your main kind of empire ethics. Anyhow, we have really good planets here too. I'm pretty happy about that. It's always nice to get good planets in a video. We are also going to start to colonize them right away, as there's kind of no downside. As we ascend so fast, we don't really run into empire size issues for our unity, and we can instead focus on quick ascension. In terms of your first tradition pick, there are many options. Transcendent learning is a good option if you're playing for the short term, and mastery of nature is better if you're playing for the long term. So we will pick mastery of nature. You could also pick something like tech ascendancy. However, I think tech ascendancy is not the most important unless you're trying to rush specific techs out, which, at least for this build, we're not currently trying to do as soon as we finish integrated cybernetics. So instead, we're just going to go ahead and keep on changing our capital over to these spiritualist enclaves. In addition, you might have noticed my consumer goods economy is pretty good. That is simply because we are using the trade policy of consumer benefits. In terms of our economic policy, it doesn't really matter since we don't work a single job, or we have 100 of each, I guess. So it doesn't really matter too much which of those we're going to have. But very, very soon, once we support the Choir of the Mind, these will all these buildings on our capital will just convert into temples, except essentially, which will produce more and more engineering tech, unity, and trade, which is, of course, fantastic for us. In terms of our planets, essentially what we want to run is one of the first planets we take will be a alloy planet, and then one of the next planets we take will be a mix between physics research and temples, and then any other planets after that will either be alloys or temples as well. When it comes to basic resources, I would recommend buying them with the trade your empire gets. The only one that gets kind of questionable is, in case you never manage to get into a trade fed, it's quite a bit of a struggle to have enough energy credits, so you will need either a planet or have a planet dedicated to energy if you do not happen to manage to get a trade fed. We are going to try to get a trade fed at all costs. There's kind of 2 main ways to doing this. The first and more reliable way is to explore out from your capital 5 or more systems and find a planet. Then you colonize this planet and you can release it as a vassal, and then form a federation with your own vassal by releasing them and then building up diplomacy with them until they accept. Since they have similar ethics and civics to you, they'll be very happy to form a trade federation with you compared to a random AI empire spawn. So that is the most reliable way to do it. The second most reliable way is simply to try to find an AI empire out there in the galaxy who is willing to form a trade fed with you. And even though you are a xenophile, which is a pretty common thing, it can sometimes still be difficult to form a federation. So yeah, do have a warning there. If you don't try to form a federation with yourself, you can get stuck for many, many years needing energy, which is obviously not ideal. And in case you're worried about that, I'd recommend in the early game not disabling your energy workers, and also buying 40 when you can to build up quite a buffer to give yourself a long time to find a actual trade fed partner after you're done Ascension. And also for technology, we're just waiting on integrated cybernetics to start our second tradition tree, as we want our second tradition tree to be cybernetics to ascend as fast as possible. Oh, so here we get the Choir of the Mind. We want to support the Choir of the Mind. This will please the Choir of the Mind. That is exactly what we want. I should have read the last option. It might have been something even better. We get a lot of black holes around here too. Black holes are actually pretty nice because they're good sites for megastructures if you get to the very late game, as we will need a source of a lot of minerals for the late game, although with Fallen Empire buildings it shouldn't be that hard. I'm an enormous fan of Cosmogenesis buildings these days as they scale so well. So, yeah, this size 13 Continental, by the way, would be like an perfect example of a planet um, that you can use to form a federation with yourself with. So, we're going to go ahead and take that as a guaranteed self federation. And then we can also go ahead and start the cybernetics tree now as we have access to it just like that at year 4 in the game. And yeah, we can go and get started. Our Unity is kind of fine. You know what I mean? It's not fantastic, but it won't stop us from finishing the tradition tree fast enough, especially with 0.75 Unity. We have Amor Alvio here. Can I escape this ship in time? I think we can turn it around in time. Nice. And perfect. So anyhow, we're just going to keep going. We're going to finish the tradition tree. At this point, you're going to start to get a situation where your pops are getting cyberized. Um, there's not much to pay attention to be honest, except for the events that support one of the factions. Once again, ignore everything except for the Choir of the Mind, or displease everyone except for the Choir of the Mind, as those are the guys you want to support. And then you can just fill out your tradition tree as you go. And there's not much to it, so we'll be back when we're getting close to finished. Alright, here's one of the events that are relatively important. Just make sure, once again, you support the Choir of the Mind, as I've mentioned many, many times. But just in case, it was the middle option in that particular screen. And as you can see, all the other Creed buildings have turned into temples, and we can kind of focus on temple maxing now, as they just produce such good output. We're up to 230 tech, 118 unity, and a very healthy basic economy that doesn't require much skill or effort to maintain, which I think is very, very important. And yeah, we can kind of instead focus on expanding out now, colonizing as many planets as we can, especially the ones with decent habitability ratings like this ocean world here and these continentals, and of course colonizing the planet we need to guarantee a federation with ourselves in case we can't form a federation with the aliens that are over here. I think they're already, if this might be the Fed origin, one of the Fed origins, as there's 3 first contacts here. Um, so yeah, that's a bit annoying because hopefully they like us though. I mean, we're xenophile, it shouldn't be too hard, and we do find the curators as well. Um, which is cool, I guess. I mean, it's good for tech if we wanted to do that. Like, we could easily um, ask them, could they aid us in our research? We would like to purchase the service. And for 500 energy credits, we get quite a bit of um, favor. And you want, essentially, you want to keep spending from them until you get up to 50 favor. Sometimes you won't have all the options available. Right, yeah, we're stuck at 40 favor, and then you can recruit one of their scientists, and they have very, very powerful scientists that can give you a counselor position that gives you like plus 10% research speed, which is a very powerful bonus. And there can only be one faith, and yeah, that's going to be very good. So yeah, getting that is quite nice. By the way, on your first planet, once again, I'd recommend making it into an alloy planet. So we're going to go augmentation, bazaar, heavy industry, and then we're eventually going to want to build an augmentation center on that as well. When we get closer to finishing the Cybernetics Tradition tree, we'll get that option. Or we might need to finish it before we can build the bazaar. But anyhow, we're just going to continue on here. Keep expanding and keeping all the planets upgrading at all times, and working towards finishing that tradition tree. There's one choice here that you guys might be curious about, the Teeth of Time. You get to select one of these bonuses to your empire. They're all good. I'm personally going to go with the trade option, as I don't really need that research speed that much, as we're going to have a lot of research, especially engineering anyway. I guess the general research speed could be very useful as well, and is probably a great option, but getting a trade bonus is very nice for your basic economy, which makes things a lot easier and relaxing to play. One min-max you can do is you can actually, instead of going the consumer goods route, you can go the Unity route and try to produce and buy all the consumer goods you need. Except I personally just find it a pain to play, even though it is faster and better if you can pull it off. Anyhow, we're not going to do that. They cannot help they sound. I don't want to make ourselves unhappy, but I don't want to upset them, but I'd rather upset them than make my own species unhappy. So that's a funny first contact right there. Yep, anyhow, onwards and upwards. And I always forget how fast the situation is. It was probably literally less than 20 seconds from my cut, and we already have access to the augmentation centers. We of course want to build these as they will give us much more pop assembly, um, and they will help us finish the situation as well. So just slide those to the top of your building priorities, and get those built as soon as you can. All right, here we are at year 11, and the cyberization situation is now complete. We are fully cybernetically ascended, and we are ready to redo our species templates. I personally find that the cybernetic species templates are not that impactful. That is to say that despite the fact that you get some nice potential traits in here, none of them are so insane that you can't get away without them. I think the auto modding trait is fine, and this would be an okay trait. I don't personally think it's that great, as it just increases upkeep for all pops, and you only get efficiency for influential jobs. I'm curious, does the haruspex count as an influential job? In which case, that is very worth. Let's go ahead and see if we can check that at all. Haruspex jobs. Engineer, physicist, biologist. Does it say whether it is an influential job or not? I really need to learn how to use how to check out these new what's it called, like workforce things. I find the UI very unintuitive. Anyhow, I think what we're gonna go ahead and do is we're simply gonna do something very simple and make something that is generally good. One thing we could try to do is just have some general pop growth traits, but we need gene tailoring to put those on. Okay, I guess we're gonna go ahead and just put some really real generic traits on here. So we're gonna go ahead and go with high bandwidth, and probably just efficient processors, and like probably climate modifications, right? Plus 30% habitability is a pretty nice bonus. So yeah, I guess we're going to go ahead and put on something like wet climate habitability, as most of our planets are currently wet planets. And then we're just going to set this as the default template. And I think the auto modding trait would definitely be pretty good too, but I'm currently genuinely unaware of whether they have actually fixed the auto modding templates to function as efficiently as they should. They probably do at this point. But I'm not actually sure. So yeah, please let me know if they're working properly if you guys know. Otherwise, yeah, we're just going to continue to keep expanding now. As you can see, we have a ton of planets to take still. We haven't quite finished them. Some of them had anomalies, so we did have to scan those anomalies off. Other than that, like size 8 world is... I wonder what to do with the size 8 world, you know what I mean? Like, I guess you could use it as just a growth planet. Getting good pop growth from it would be something better than nothing. Which is probably what we're going to end up doing. And then we just have this one last planet over here that we do still need to take, and that will of course be our Federation planet, I think, as yeah, we're gonna need a Federation. These guys are already in a Federation. I'm not even sure if it's a trade fed. It could be. Let's take a look. Hegemony, right? So yeah, that's not a very useful Federation type. So we're gonna try to make a trade fed with ourselves in that case, and we can also go ahead and start taking the next tradition picks that we're looking for. And I'm probably going to go Transcendent Learning here. Don't really need One Vision. Don't really need a Tech Ascendancy. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and take Transcendent Learning, and we're going to open Statecraft now and start leveling up our leaders very quickly. I believe in regular playthroughs, I would highly recommend not skipping Statecraft in your first 2 traditions if you can, especially in single player where you can almost always have enough time to scale up your leaders. And it just provides, massive bonuses compared to something that is more immediately power focused, like supremacy or something like that. Anyhow, we get increased trader output, so we're going to go ahead and put that on our council, give them an upgraded leader, and we're going to start to work on simply designating these planets to their kind of final form ideas. Right, we want augmentation centers, of course, on each planet. If you take a look at our pop growth, the pop growth is actually quite good. It does scale. It's regular biological pop growth. It's not like synthetic assembly. So if we take a look at our pop growth, we also get this nice dual pop growth from, I believe it's from Augmentation Bazaars, though I could be wrong. It could just be something from Cybernetic Creed. And it does scale with the number of pops on the planet. So on the newer planets, it's quite a bit lower. But if you get them going early enough and just resettle just a few pops over, you can kind of get the snowball rolling. Especially if you get enough to fill out all the augmenter jobs, which are really efficient jobs in the first place, so you would want to have them filled out. Also, do keep in mind you are also a commercial empire, right? You are a megacorp. So when you find other empires out there in the galaxy, you want to improve relations and eventually form commercial pacts. If you're playing with human players, you can even trade resources back and forth to build trust and attitude towards each other very, very quickly, so you can form a commercial pact almost right away. I'd say against with most AIs, you don't really need to do that. Just be a little bit patient and form a commercial pact with them. A little bit slower, but it's pretty reliable if you can manage to get an embassy to get up to at least 20 trust, which is what you need to form a commercial pact. Welcome back, everybody. It is now year 20. We are scaling pretty fine. Our alloys are a bit lacking as our pop growth on our alloy planet is not fantastic at 4.41. One thing I've noticed is this planet seems to have bug pop growth. It just keeps going up. It's like way higher than I feel like it should be. I don't. Why is it 27? I don't know. I don't know. Am I gonna say I'm unhappy about this? No, I'm definitely okay. But yeah, this I've seen this happen with other people before, where there was one guy playing Purity, and he just randomly had 200 pop assembly at year 20, which is not a number you can normally get on Purity at year 20. That's like a number that you normally have to wait to like year 60, 70 to get via the Fallen Empire buildings. So I don't know if I'm having a similar bug experience here or something like that. But yeah, it doesn't make it. It should be like 4, right? Because if you take a look at all my other planets, it's like in the 3 to 4 range, which makes sense for the number of pops on the planet and the amount of growth it has. But yeah, this it just it's going up still. Like I don't know what's going on. This is pretty insane. Um, but it's gonna end up feeding all my pops with all my planets with pops. I don't know what to do about it. I guess like we'll just enjoy the fact it's happening. Um, but yeah, that's pretty insane. I have no idea what's going on. If anyone knows what causes this kind of thing, please let me know. As I'm genuinely not even doing it on purpose. Like I would be perfectly happy, in fact, if not happier, to play if every single one of my planets had a normal pop growth, so I could kind of show a more normal power curve. But now I'm probably going to be like 10 years ahead of where I should be per 20 years. Which is definitely a lot, just thanks to the insane number of pops. And I do find that the number of pops is a bit of a limiting factor when playing this build normally, as you need a lot of pops on a planet before the pop growth on that planet gets good. But once the pop growth like catches up and every planet has like about as many as your homeworld, for example, then it gets extremely good everywhere, and that's fine. But that's clearly not the case, as we're gonna have pops like feeding in from this planet just like insanely. Like it's just still going up. Like what is going on? Um, I don't even know. I don't even know what's going on. But yeah. Anyways, um, at this point, we do need to decide what we're gonna do with all our planets. If you don't know what to do with the planet, just keep building city districts on it, and then they're kind of always useful later on to have more city districts. So I'd kind of recommend that. Currently, I'm just making sure we have at least one physics planet to kind of catch up our physics tech. As you can see, it is by far the most lacking, as most of our tech is currently in engineering. We'll also have more than enough society tech. Even though our society tech is quite a bit lower, we'll be getting a good amount of it through more temple jobs. I should build one of these amphitheaters of the mind, eh? This looks like a pretty good building. Do we get that as a option on every planet? Oh, we do. 60 biologist jobs, 100 haruspex, researcher upkeep minus 5%. Yeah, it looks like a solid building. I should probably build that on all the planets here. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and we have tons of trade, right? So we just buy goods at a ridiculous price, and then we can go ahead and build all those nice buildings. So where was that building? I believe it was a research building? Where'd it go? No, it's not a research building. What? Oh, can you only build them on spiritualist enclaves or nope? What? Um. Oh, my capital must already have one because it yeah, oh yeah, this is the building that comes with the horror specs. No, with the with the Ascension. Right. So we're gonna go ahead and just build one of those on every planet because it looks like a solid building. Um, so why not? I guess you really don't need these on your non-tech planets, but it seems nice, so why not? And we don't need that many other buildings. I would say one thing that I would recommend is building medical centers and clone vats, as they do increase your pop growth as well. Um, and once you get the Fallen Empire medical centers, they're definitely quite powerful on basically any build which uses some form of biological pops. And believe it or not, um, when you're cybernetically ascended, you still get biological pop growth instead of pop assembly, so you do get good advantages from building like clone vats and that kind of thing. So we're going to go ahead and build them on all our planets as if we really need the pop growth, even though we don't, thanks to the bug. But yeah, I'm just kind of showing you guys what you should be doing in case you're not experiencing this bug and getting a ridiculous amount of pop growth. Is it a bug, or is it something you can manage to repeat? Because if so, like, that's kind of ridiculously overpowered, right? Because you could get some insane pop numbers on a lot of builds if you could find a way to make something like this repeatable. Anyhow, one thing you have noticed is also we have been colonizing this planet over here, and it is almost done now. And basically, the first thing you want to do is you want to add it to a new sector. I believe that's in the management page. So yeah, create new sector. This sector is just this planet now. And then you want to go to your planets and sectors and Gorzam Prime here. And what you want to do is you first want to edit the sector, and you want to turn off auto expand. And I think by coincidence, it is just a single system sector, which is kind of exactly what you want, to be honest. Um, and yeah, you don't want to add any systems to it. Sometimes you'll have to remove systems that have kind of joined in with it. We obviously don't want to give them any extra systems. And then from the same screen, planets and sectors, you can go ahead and create vassal. We can just use a random name, as I could not really be bothered to find a main name for them or to customize a name for them. Then what we're going to go ahead is we're going to release subject. So where can we do that? Release subject. And then we're going to go ahead and assign a couple envoys to them, establish an embassy, establish a non-aggression pact, guarantee independence, all the above. And this will give us a very good Federation acceptance. And then all we need to do is actually find the Federation tech, which we have good society tech, but it can take a while. If you want to, you can waste a tradition tree on Federation tech, which is, I believe, diplomacy. This will guarantee the diplomacy option. It is generally a very bad tradition tree, so it's kind of sad if you need to take it. So I'd recommend trying to RNG it and then taking something useful like prosperity instead. So we're going to go ahead and do that and just hope we luck it, and I'll kind of join back with you guys once we happen to find it. For now, we're just going to buy an absurd amount of energy credits to try to maintain our empire here. And we do have an absurd amount of trade, so to be honest, it kind of works. And we also need to buy some food at this point because we're going to start to burn quite a bit of food through those clone vats. And yeah, let's also like just take a look at the pop assembly we're getting across our planets now. 19 on our capital, which is clearly what we should be getting. That's kind of like a non-bugged amount. And then on most of our colonies, between 4 to 5 at this point, I would imagine. And okay, the bug is gone. The bug is gone, guys. We're back to a normal amount of pop growth. Okay, that's good. I'm happy about that. I just got like 1,000 free pops from that. It's not. It's a helpful amount, but not a crazy amount. Okay, I don't know what caused it, but if you guys know and can repeat it, you guys can do some funny things for sure. Anyhow, yeah. Okay. Thankfully, it's gone. We can play normally. Nice. Welcome back, everybody. We're just around year 30 here, and we finally have unlocked the Federation research tech. So we can go ahead and now form a federation with our buddies over here. And as you can see, they actually don't have enough acceptance. So what we need to do actually is, I believe they want to have defensive wars only. And then I should be able to form a federation. Yep, we can finally form a trade league. And a trade league is, of course, very, very important, as now we don't have to worry about energy credits anymore and can focus our entire economy on buying minerals and food, so we don't have to produce them normally. We're a little short on consumer goods, but that should be fine. And yeah, we also have very very good engineering tech at this point as well. I mean, we could take techs like arc furnace, as this could definitely help with our mineral situation. We also took arcology project as our third pick in that department. However, we don't really have an arcology ready planet yet. Perhaps our homeworld will be ready soon, except we have quite a long ways to go. We have to um, build quite a few more districts before we can get that, and then we need to get 20,000 minerals, which could be a bit of a challenge with our current economy, as it is not fantastic. Although we are building a good amount of minerals now, which is not minerals, I mean a good amount of trade plus 70, so that could be converted into some more minerals. And our tech situation is also extremely good at over 1k, over 800 unity. This means we're going to finish our tradition tree really fast, guys, probably before year 50. For an entire like complete tradition tree, which will be pretty wild as well. One thing I'm considering is probably just turning this planet into kind of a temporary mining world. Um, just to kind of boost our mineral output to enough so that we can get the EQ started, and then we can later on convert that world into something else, as we're going to get more and more trade, and we can spend more and more trade just buying minerals until hopefully we get to arc furnaces and then Dyson swarm spheres and matter decompressors and that kind of thing. Mega structure as a source of minerals, basically. And since our engineering tech is so good, we could get that quite quickly, but our physics is so bad, it's going to take us quite a bit of time before our physics can catch up, as you do need certain physics techs to actually unlock mega engineering. I think it's specifically the reactor tech. I think you need to max that out. So we're going to have to do that. And as you can see, we're just building a lot of planets that are just city districts and spiritualist enclaves. And as the game goes on, we'll also see that the pop growth on these planets kind of gradually increases. We're getting like 8 on the colonies now, and 20 on our home world, and our broken world, which was giving us 35, is now giving us 6, which is a more normal amount, and I'm still happy to see that, because I don't want to play a game where I have 2x the pop growth that you're supposed to. Anyhow, as you can see, this build is already quite strong, but we're going to play it like probably like to year 60 or 70 to just show how well it scales, which is definitely pretty good. I would say one of the more major flaws simply is the alloy scaling is not that great, as the pop efficiency isn't great, meaning you're going to have to dedicate a lot of jobs into alloys before you get a good amount, which will definitely include an Ecumenopolis. And to actually get that Ecumenopolis, well, that's why we're building this mineral world. So we'll be back in a bit. All right, everyone. Here at year 40, we're finally starting to build a fleet. It's a little late, but yeah, as I mentioned before, not the strongest alloy build unless you play considerably better than I do, which is definitely possible, as I'm a bit of a self-admitted cybernetic noob. I rarely play it, but I just wanted to show off this is a relatively strong build, as despite everything, we're still over 1.5k tech. I decided to go farm estate as a pretty fun option for the last Civic. You can go worker cooperative if you want a more stable source of basic resources, and there's also a ton of other good options as well. Shareholder values is a great way to scale alloys and consumer goods if that's something you're struggling with. What else seem to be good options? Oh, I do believe one interesting thing is if you're not spiritualist, which is of course not us, you can actually take the auto curator vault, and that would be a pretty funny option to make your bureaucrats produce additional trade and unity. That's a very good option on knights, but for this build it doesn't work, because I believe you have to be spiritualist to play Cybernetic Creed. So yep, anyhow, that's just something I thought I should mention. Farm estate, however, is a decent option, and it'll definitely get, I would say, better once we get access to the Fallen Empire genetic buildings, as we're gonna be able to spam those, get a really high pop growth, and also decently high pop efficiency from that, I believe. So that should be pretty helpful. Anyhow, in the meantime, we have also taken Cosmogenesis, because as you know, I love Cosmogenesis, so we got to take that at every opportunity, and just use that to kind of flush out the Empire. Yeah, at this point, it's just a matter of continuing to scale up the tech, managing the basic resources, as it can be a bit of a struggle. Like, we're having to put some food districts down on this world, which will eventually be our defense world for NavCap, but for now, it can run some agriculture. Um, our mining world here is tiny, but it'll help us get these EQs up faster, and it's still going to take a long time as this planet is just so excessively small. So we might only hit the EQ by like year 45, at least the one on our capital, which I'd say is a bit of a shame in the sense that it definitely could be quite a bit better there. Um, One thing I should definitely do, however, is I need more districts as we're lacking districts on this planet. So in the meantime, we're just going to continue to rush down all these techs here. Still a ton to go, and yeah, should be fun. All right, everybody. Here in Euro 46, we just ticked over 2K tech per month. Also, with this really nice engineering bias distribution, it's pretty clean. But yeah, at this point in the game, essentially what we want to focus on is we should have Galcom by now, and you really want to try to get commercial packs with all the trade-looking empires in your world. I have deliberately put a couple trade-focused builds in my guaranteed AI spawns. But however, I'm pretty lucky, so there's actually a couple other AIs in here who seem to be at least Xenophile, which will give them a boost in trade. And since they're also Grand Admirals, they have decent boost to their economy. So by building branch offices on them, you can actually get a nice little bonus to trade from each branch office. And that definitely helps with the basic economy, which is not fantastic, to be honest. And the reason why the basic economy is, I would describe it as not fantastic, is simply because the trader jobs from your spiritualists or spiritualist enclaves are not the most efficient in the sense of, even though they're really nice and they produce society, engineering, trade, and unity, which is a crazy combo, by the way, they just don't produce an incredible amount. Um, they produce a very reasonable amount and a good amount, but the amount of trade they actually produce is not so competitive with actual trader jobs on a trade focused build like merchant guilds. So instead, you will want to get some of those commercial packs just to bolster your basic economy, allowing you to focus more on other things, such as alloys, which even to this point we still don't have a fantastic amount of. As you can see, the 3.2k metallurgists we have on this size 16 world produce only 245 alloys per month, and with some upkeep in jobs and such, we don't even get that much. So we will need quite a bit of tech before we really start to produce good amount of alloys, including turning this world into an Ecumenopolis. And with our tiny mineral world, it'll take a minute. So that will probably be the second world we focus on getting to an Ecumenopolis, and then after that, we can start to just gradually EQ one world after the other until we're working fully with EQs. Also, we have a quite good basic trade income here, so we can always buy a decent amount of minerals despite them being very expensive on the market, as we have been just consistently buying way too many of them. And one thing you can do about that is, of course, try to form the galactic market. And there'll be a lot of AI selling basic resources on there, giving you a better value for your trade. And welcome back, guys. Here at year 50, we've bolstered up our fleets just a little bit, just to kind of match the AIs around us in case that ever becomes an issue. But we're not really militarizing for the sake of conquering anyone or anything like that. But what I did want to share is we can now build orbital rings, and this is a pretty important stage in scaling up in basically every single build, is you want to build orbital rings around all your core planets, as that's going to help a lot. Also, our arcologies are definitely on the way, and we're going to be hitting up one new arcology basically every time we have the opportunity to, and we have enough minerals, which at this point is probably about once every 5 to 10 years. Although that could be speeding up very, very soon. In addition, we've bolstered up our mineral world a little bit more, and all our worlds are just kind of being upgraded at all times whenever you can. We're also starting to build some arc furnaces everywhere. I've had this tech for a while. I've just kind of forgotten to actually start the buildings. Anyhow, we're also queuing up rings around every single planet to get ready to make these worlds much more vertical and much better. Also, I wonder if we can nominate our homeworld as a galactic market hub, as it could be a pretty strong contender with high pop count, high stability, and also just a ton of trade as well. 1300 trade is quite a bit for the AIs at least, so should be pretty competitive there. And yeah, we're also just flying through the techs. I'm already getting close to repeatables on engineering. Though no mega engineering yet, as it is very, very hard to roll mega engineering before you're 50. as you're kind of barred from rolling Citadel tech. And we've had battleships since year 35, by the way. So, yeah, anyhow, we're just going to keep on going, and yeah. Alright, guys, as our first EQs come into play, you can see that our alloys are finally becoming quite strong. And I would recommend if you want to play this build in multiplayer, you'll probably definitely have to go double alloy planet instead of one of these extra Eclax crystal. How do you pronounce this? How do you pronounce this? The world type that is favored for the spiritualist enclaves. Yeah, I don't even know how to pronounce it. Let's take a look. You know what? I'm not going to try. Yeah, essentially these worlds, you could probably drop one, if not maybe like one and a half of them to alloys if you need alloys earlier in the game. If not, and you're playing single player like myself, I would recommend it's not a bad idea to simply wait until you're able to build whatever, like higher tier ships and produce a higher tier amount of alloys once you have something like an EQ going. And I also cannot tell you why every time I make an alloy EQ, it deletes all my buildings off it, meaning that I have to rebuild all my important buildings as well, which is pretty annoying, but it's not a huge deal. We'll have those rebuilt in no time at all. Let's just prioritize them too so it happens a little bit faster. And yeah, I mean, at this point in time, essentially all you need to do to continue to scale up is you need to go ahead and find all the cybernetic, not all the cybernetic, all the Fallen Empire buildings. And with the amount of tech we're producing, it's like 3 to 4K. It's closer to 4K than it is 3K, as our engineering is actually 1.7K at this point. So yeah, essentially all you need to do is go through the tech. We've already seen quite a few of them, but we'll continue to see them more and more frequently as our tech level scales up. In addition, I would highly recommend building a sacred nexus on each of your Unity planets or your haruspex planets, as this gives plus 15% output to haruspex, which is very, very nice. The Citadel of Faith, unfortunately, only boosts the Unity output from the haruspex and not the other bonuses, so I don't think they're really worth it. But yeah, essentially what you'll want to do is you'll want to put a bunch of those genomic research buildings on each planet and then fill out the rest with whatever Fallen Empire buildings matches the kind of output you're looking for, and the output will go absolutely crazy. As you can see, our trade is also going completely insane. Like, we can buy an insane amount of energy credits, for example, if that's what we needed to sustain our empire, or alloys, or just or you know, we also do need to focus on nav cap, but like, we need that probably as our fourth EQ. I would say the more Ecumenopolises you get these days, the better. And you basically want every single one of your worlds to become an Ecumenopolis except for the one you have dedicated to basic resources. And at the same time, your basic resources can be bought out with trade. As you can see, we're producing quite the excess now that our EQs are up and running, and we can finally start to expand these to the maximum and get them very, very efficient. Also, they do provide a nice little boost to pop growth, as you can see. Obviously, on this planet, we have to rebuild the bazaars and stuff because they were deleted, but like 26 on our capital is a very healthy amount of pop growth. And on the non-EQ planets, we're getting like 17 to 20 or like 15 to 20 pop growth, which is also decent. Not our size 8 mining world, but you kind of get the point. We get decent pop growth, decent pop efficiency, and just an absolutely insane amount of unity. Our tradition tree is now 100% done. We have 3 tradition or ascension perks left to pick, and at this point you can just start dumping your unity into ascending all your planets to the maximum tier. These provide a nice set of bonuses, and once you eventually find the ascension theory tech, you can also ascend your planets all the way to the level 10, which will give even larger bonuses, and it'll also decrease your empire size, which is a very, very nice touch. And you guys can kind of see how despite not being a traditionally very strong build path, it still scales quite well, and doesn't fall too far behind any overtuned base builds. I mean, this will definitely be behind any overtuned base build, don't get me wrong, who at year 64 could probably be well over, probably close to 2,000 alloys and 8,000 tech, as well as a much earlier militarization. This is still pretty strong. And with all that being said, I think, yeah, this episode is going to be coming to an end now. Yeah, I think at this point in the game, you guys can all see how we've basically entered creative mode. It is definitely not as fast as Overtune Creative Mode, where you probably get there about year 55. So this is about a decade later, but even still, at this point, all we really have to do now is expand these Ecumenopolises, wait for the Fallen Empire text to roll around. As you can see, we're getting repeatables, so, and Fallen Empire text, it's just a matter of time before we get all of them. Um, you can even enable auto research now. If you do have Cosmogenesis and auto research, it could be a good idea to take Tech Ascendancy, as with the new Tech Ascendancy, you can disable dangerous research options, so you won't accidentally destroy your own empire with the experimental research from Cosmogenesis, which is nice. And essentially, at this point, all that's really left to do is get an infinite source of nav cap, so you can go ahead and do anything you want, fight the crisis, fight other empires, and just, yeah, basically all that requires is dedicating a new Ecumenopolis entirely to naval capacity and letting pops grow on that. But anyways, that is Cybernetic Ascension and Cybernetic Creed. I believe this is the best way to play Cyber. If you do 3 traditions into a Cybernetic Ascension, you might as well do Biogenesis or Modularity, as they're just strict upgrades over Synthetic. But Synthetic's ability to ascend at year 10 is something that is unmatched, not even by Teachers of the Shroud, which I think is very, very cool. And you guys should definitely take advantage of it. Anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.